So first off, thanks to Left Banks one more time. Woo! They always push me, and it's a great queer space and open to everybody, and they always carry my books. So hallelujah. And thank you all for coming. There's locals, there's family, there's high school, there's grade school. People come from from everywhere. So many people from my grade school. So it's like, oh my lord. And I'll read just a little bit, but I do have to share off topic. So a friend, I haven't seen him in 100 years, but was in my grade school and brought me this book and a poem I wrote in grade school. So I thought, let me read that damn thing, and then I'll go to Drought. But obviously, I was a serious child. I drew a solo person walking sadly down the path, and it's called Journey Through Life. And this is grade school. For as you travel on life's weary journey, never give up and you'll always be learning. Find all the love that you're able to see, and you will soon feel so happy and free. So, I'll tell this faster.
Great.
I don't know, probably like kindergarten or something. No, it was what grade? Seventh grade,
49 years ago.
something like that.
We
So,
have 50 years coming
yeah, we got the Berlin.
up.
Oh, it was 20 years ago. But anyway, thank you for bringing that. It's like, good Lord, I remember my teacher was Miss Fitzsimmons, and she said, "Oh, you're a writer," and she's like, "So, oh, my book." She's like, "So write all summer, write everything." So thank you, Miss Fitzsimmons, wherever you are. So I'll read a little bit from one part, a little bit from the other, because it's a dual narrative. It is a queer story set in Kentucky, and two different eras. So this is the central story that's modern. Before him, a supersonic double bacon cheeseburger, jumbo popcorn shrimp, chili cheese tots, and a Coke, and Darl. On the drive over to the Sonic, Parnell grew ravenous, dizzy, and disoriented. His brain could not fully connect what he had heard in relation to where he was in his life in this place, this land, his obligation. He had to eat. He and Darl sat at an outdoor metal picnic table. Darl smoked. Halfway through the meal, Parnell paused. He could breathe again. The air was strangely still, as if things had stopped, which in some ways for him they had. He needed to tell Darl what the preacher had said. "I talked to the preacher," Parnell began. Darl dropped and stubbed his cigarette. He stood up and began to do a toe-touching exercise. "I think I best get in shape this summer," he said. "Let's swim tonight." Parnell took a gulp of his Coke and he began again. "He told me some strange things about my uncle. I'm not sure how to say it." Darl did not pause his exercise. "Let's face it, the preacher ain't all there. I like him. But have you heard his sermons? It's more than that," Parnell said. Then he belched. "Sorry." Darl stopped his exercise, but not because of the belch. He was looking at something in the distance. "Well, shit," he said. "We got us a dirt devil." "What?" "A dust devil." What, Parnell said. Turning, he saw it. It was a gray funnel-shaped mass spinning up to the sky. Like a tornado, Parnell thought, but more contained. Like a white-gray whirlwind shooting to heaven. It was in the distance, but moving toward them quickly. Darrell hooted. "Well, shit, I ain't seen one since I was a kid," he said. Parnell froze with fear. He was not a person who could move quickly in the event of danger. He could not descend narrow staircases to dark root cellars as they did in Kansas in a black and white film, or run from things he'd seen in so many films. He was doomed, he thought. "I have heard this cursed story, and now I am cursed. This is all really happening. This is the thing I came for. I wanted something to happen. I wanted to feel alive. This is it." He felt, too, the terrible aftertaste of the preacher's story, the fate of his ruined uncle imprinted on him now, in his very blood. He, the descendant, the chosen one, to carry on the awful curse, if only momentarily, before he was sucked skyward then, likely dumped onto his inherited farmland, maybe on the very spot where Horace was buried. And for a moment he thought he saw a face in the funnel, speeding toward them, heard a screaming voice. Stop there. So you have to buy and read the book to find out what happened. Now the other part is his dead uncle from back in the 50s. And anyway, it's a different part. So a little bit of that. Let's see. Phil said that in the middle of the scene. Phil said that in a matter-of-fact way, but also like he was sharing a secret, like it was special. I liked that about Phil. I believed what he said and knew he did not doubt the things he said. I realized too at that moment, moving him slowly toward the field, that I loved this place. The crops were my life, in my blood, part of me. Not because it had to be, because I wanted it to be. We got into the crops and the howling came again, then a second and a third time, but different voices, animals from distant places, maybe reaching out to one another. It all seemed close. I was wondering if Phil's knee might give out, but he seemed not to be too bothered. Here, I said. He was leaning a little harder on me, a little further. It's like going deeper in the water, getting out to where you feel like there's nothing else. I like that, I said. And I knew as we moved a bit further that we were in a good spot before he said it. We were completely surrounded by the tall tobacco plants, the thick leaves big as a bear's paw, the short hairs on them oozing tiny drips of yellow. It was like being out at sea at night, lost. The stretch of the sky above looked wider and more endless than normal, and it didn't feel so hot, and it didn't feel quite real. With the howling, there were night birds flocking by, too, though I couldn't see them, just heard wings flapping. Phil was leaning on me. He let go of his stick, and it fell to the ground. You think I'm crazy, Phil said, wanting to come out here. I looked out across the long stretch of big, veiny, ancient-looking leaves that went on and on. No, I said, it's good. When he leaned his head in close to mine, it didn't occur to me anything was wrong. We'd been standing close for a bit. We were of similar height, and the closeness felt natural as I held him up there. When I felt his cheek on mine, I first felt it was all the same, all part of the same walking, talking, being. But as his cheek stayed on mine, something else started, and I felt it clearly, and I became afraid. This is a good place, Will, he said. His voice was so close, his breath was there. It was like he was in my ear, telling me something, and I choked up because it was a good place. It was my life, so many years in this field, this place, but now it was different. All at once, it was new. There were more sounds, the animals, and more birds, but all I wanted was for Phil to say something, to feel his breath, and for something to keep going on. And I was already past the point of thinking, of striking anything down that hadn't been part of what I was just moments ago in the kitchen. And that scene continues to, by the book, and you'll learn more. So those are two little things from the two narratives. Thank you for listening. And now, we'll chat.
Howdy.
Howdy, partner.
Welcome home.
Thank you. I'm wearing my boots. It's set in Kentucky, and I'm kind of in my Western phase, country phase. The last couple books have been country, so that's why the whole Western book.
So I've got to get in my boots, so didn't mean to wear Skechers, but
I bought these on the real deal.
I have to ask you, well, I have to tell you, when you read that first passage again, I remember the first thing I did after I finished reading your book was go to Sonic. I got a supersonic cheeseburger and tater tots. I didn't get the cherry lime slush. It was a really long wait. I waited 30 minutes and I got my Sonic. So I think you probably helped Sonic's business.
And you still stay so slim.
It's after I read one of your books. So I have to ask, you're from St. Louis, prodigal son, you live in New York City. What inspired you to write a queer story set on a tobacco farm in rural Kentucky?
Right. It's odd that people always want to know what inspires my books, and I honestly don't know. I'm a stream of consciousness writer. Ideas come, and if they get stuck and keep bugging me, then I end up writing a book. But I do realize after I've written a book, I was actually visiting. I mean, I live in this giant city, right? But I too still always feel connected to like Missouri and rivers and fields. And I was on the way to Amy Lou Hess's in a bus and I kept passing fields. And that's where this idea came about tobacco. And it just kind of went. And then the dual narratives and the undercurrent, all of my books have had at least one queer character. So I think the undercurrent of people looking for something and discovery and feeling other than, and it's always part of the character journey. But I was kind of surprised that I was going to set something on in Kentucky, and so I had to do my research, and because I'd never been to. Well, I was at Kentucky Lake, but anyway. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Which leads me to ask, what type of research you did? You said you feel very comfortable in rural areas. I guess, did you research tobacco? Like when you come to a story like this, I know you're writing from your mind, but how much research do you do and what does that?
I do a lot, and let's not say I feel very comfortable in rural areas, especially today, Hideo. Yeah, not necessarily, but there were some very frightening moments in rural fields. So, but it stirs me up, and so the research, like with all my books, I found a lady, and if you're a writer, there's so many people who want to help you. So I found a lady who lived in Kentucky and wrote a novel, and we connected, and she told me all about her family's tobacco farm. And then I read up all about tobacco and how it's made, and I'm not made, grown. And then I made up my own town long ago. I still love Faulkner, but I was like, we made up this own town. So I made up my own Kentucky town, but I made sure it was realistic, that I wanted a Sonic. So I found a real Kentucky small town that had a tobacco farm and a Sonic. And I'm like, okay, so this is real enough. And then I took it from there. And I also created a character who knew nothing about, he's very obese, like me. And that was a joke. But, and he wants to get away from his life, and he knows nothing about farming. So I could bring that perspective to the story because I know nothing about farming. And someone gave him this farm, so that's why he went. So I like that approach because I wasn't going to write a novel from the point of view of the actual farmer. I could, but that would take a lot of research.
So I was talking to my friend Chris Ando, who publishes out in STL, who wrote a really beautifully written,
He did, yeah.
really nice review. And I'm gonna give him credit. He said something really interesting. He said a lot of authors make you feel like you're in the room. And he said, in this book, you made him feel like you were inside the character's mind,
Right.
that you became the person,
Right.
much the way you did.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about becoming that person? Like, what is that? It's almost like method acting.
It is, yeah.
Tell me a little bit what that's like to inhabit that person and almost kind of become that person.
Well, I feel very blessed as a writer that I believe in the muses or something, because once I commit to a character and I also teach writing, and I tell my students, live the book, just live the book. And I do that. And so I really feel like I am the person. I just become them. I don't have to strive for it. It just happens. And I also tell my students, like, take some acting classes, because I did study acting, and that stuff of like, oh, method acting, what is he wearing? How does he sit? It's very different from writing, but it did help teach me like developing, the complexity of humanity and trying to get that on a page. It's not easy. And so the more you know about the quirks and secrets and things of a person, the more you can inhabit them and then write them. So, but I do feel lucky that once they start rolling, they guide me. Then I also chose, why I chose, but I chose this massive person. Well, I know why I chose, but anyway, back to you.
It's another type queerness, really, right?
Right.
He was, and that's another form of being an outsider.
Right.
And speaking of kind of becoming that person, I mean, you wrote with such empathy, like situations other people might think are very normal, like getting out of a car,
Right.
sitting down in mud and water.
Right.
How did you know those kinds of nuances? I think that's why you did feel like you were that person, because it was so specific about how we move through the world.
Right. Yeah, I think subconsciously or emotionally, growing up gay and going through the world and so forth, there's discomfort in a lot of things. How I inhabited in a huge obese person, I don't know. I just like, I've seen very, very heavy people, and I mean, I burst into tears, but I live in New York City and there are a lot of there's a lot of struggling people. So there's like a guy near me now that lives on the street. He's massive and his legs are so, and anyway, I just took that in and I just live as them. And the first scene is on a bus and I'm like, I see myself as that. And it's like, how the hell is he going to get up the aisle? He can't fit. The bathroom's too tiny. Things like that. And he feels self-conscious when he eats. And so I don't know, just kind of, and then you just build that. And also when I write, I go very moment to moment. It's like, all I think about is, I don't know, what's next? You got to get off the bus. So that's all you got to think about. And then suddenly the bus door is too narrow. So that helps, to kind of live that. And that all came to me. That.
And I think also the way you play with the senses. It's such a sensory book. Like I really felt like I had the tobacco leaf in my mouth when I was reading. It's like you dirt grit in your teeth.
We should give away a free tobacco leaf with every book.
We're going to Kentucky.
Yes.
But talk a little bit about, and even heat like we're experiencing right now in the post-cold drought. But maybe talk about the way you kind of use sensory perception. Like, you really feel like you can taste the air when you read the book.
Right. I love using the senses. I love setting. I love extreme weather. A lot of my books, it's either a heat wave or a blizzard. It gives you a lot to work with, a lot of conflict. And I like writing about setting, about the tree and the heat and the feeling and this. What I've had to learn to do is bring story into that and plot and character and, things. But I love writing about the way I'm in a writing group, and the way the book started that you didn't get to read was like 5 pages of him looking on a bus, describing a field. And they're like, and they're like, well, nothing's going on here. I'm like, oh, but isn't it beautiful? And they're like, but who cares? It's like, why are we staring at the field for 5 pages? So I had to learn to keep sure we got our field, but what's going on? So I think I naturally love setting. I wrote about the Mississippi River. And I'm also drawn to water a lot. I'm drawn to, it's funny because I live in the city, but trees, fields, I'm drawn to maybe because I don't live in it, I get to live in it in my head.
Was Parnell the first character? Did it grow out of that
Yeah.
character?
That's all I had was Parnell. Good old Parnell. He breaks my heart.
And then
But he's happy now, I think. But
yes.
that's all I had was gigantic Parnell on a bus.
So
That's it.
So you had the intro from the beginning.
And I knew he was running away. I knew he had no life. He lived in Newark and had no life. And he was on a bus. And then I decided he'll inherit. And, so that was the beginning. He had a chance to do something.
So I also think you mentioned that this is 2 kind of dual times.
Right.
And you've done other period pieces in various times, 1891, Butcher Sons, which is New York 1930s,
Right.
and now you've done early 1950s,
Right.
and possibly current time.
Right.
You and I kind of talked for this a little bit about that, where it felt like the current time, but I wasn't quite sure. Then
Right.
you kind of had some interesting things to say about kind of why
Yeah.
you chose to be a little bit vague about pop culture references. So, we talk a little bit about kind of writing between those two times.
Oh, between the
And
two?
why you kind of made the current time a little more.
Timeless?
Yes.
Yeah. Especially my later books, I like dual narratives. I've done that in the last 2 or 3 books. I tried it and I kind of liked it because I do like writing of other time periods, but I kind of enjoyed anchoring somebody in the present, but then having some cursed history back here. So then I get to deal with 2 time periods. Plus, I originally started writing books. The first ones were a little transgressive, very transgressive. But the Butchered Sons, I was inspired by Hollinghurst and Jean Genet and these people that wrote queer books, but were very literary, and that's not the point of the book. And so I wanted to be a different current, but then also what was it like to potentially like be gay in 1930 in New York City, and like the differences. That's why the back 1950 to also remember our history. We're kind of going back to it, but it's I like to bring all that in. So you've got both. What was there more question?
And we talked about maybe.
Oh, the timelessness.
Yeah.
I don't want to get mired into cell phones unless it's a book about technology, but I don't want to bother with cell phones in the news and too much of current affairs. And sometimes people say, no, you should be pointing at this that happened. And I prefer when it's current that it feels more timeless. It could be 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's modern, but I don't want to tie to a specific, and a lot of times, I mean, they're out on a farm, nothing's going on, there's nothing around. So it allows me to be timeless, but I don't give them a phone I just don't want to bother with that in these stories.
And in the film, in the book, Parnell, I won't give too much away, but he will relate memories, something that happens to a film he sees.
Yes.
And even then, you were very careful about, it could have done really pop culture reference.
Right,
And it felt like you kind of hinted at that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was interesting.
Yes, I try to keep those as general and mysterious as possible. And it was in trying to figure out how to layer a character, he, in the first half of the book, his memories, he has no memories. So his memories are clips from films, but he's taken them on almost as his own memories. Like, I remember it was hot in the summer, and so, I wanted to bring in that he's very, very much a loner, isolated, people shun him. So, and he grew up an orphan, and so he had no real memories of his own. He brought them all in through film clips. And then that changes when he finally starts to have a lot of himself. But yeah, I'd like the reader to have leeway and make things up in their own mind. So that's also why I keep things like that general.
Yeah, I told you offline that I started to kind of do that. I was trying to see film scenes in my own mind, and some of the scenes, which I thought was kind of interesting. One interesting aspect of this, it really gets kind of a ghost story on a few different figurative and maybe even a little bit of an actual ghost, literally. Talk a little bit about that kind of writing that I don't know if you call that magical realism, but I thought that was kind of surprised me a little bit, but it was really interesting.
Yeah, it surprised me too. That's my books kind of guide me. I like ghosts. I like the idea. And for the Hesses, I'm very, having lost my mother and going through grief and what that. I was writing that book around this time, so there was a sense of that too, of loss and what happens after. So that just kind of came through. And also, I won't tell the whole story, but there is somebody that dies, and they reappear. I wanted them to reappear and to see, also the man's narrating from the grave. That's how part 2 starts. He's actually narrating from the grave. So I don't know, I just got into all that. It was like, I wanted death and life to be coming together, and also, how they intermingle.
Yeah, I don't give anything away, but it was such an interesting way. Again, that very sensory way you describe something so abstract, but
Right.
very concrete for me. So I think a lot of us have this experience. When you're reading a really great book, like I was finishing yours, and the pages you're getting towards the end, and you start reading slower and slower. You don't want the book to end, and then you miss the characters, because unless there's a sequel, that's it. There's no more story except what you might make up in your mind. Do your characters stay with you after you're finished writing the book?
Yeah, I mean, they have to step aside because I've got a new book, which I've just finished. It's set in rural Missouri, so I'll probably see you in 2 years. But they stay. Maybe they all like live on a compound together or something. Because I remember Wall, Hess, and I think his name is Dick in the book. Yeah, it didn't hide much there, but. And so I remember these, definitely, they're all still alive. They're all still, I brought them to life. They feel lived their lives with them. And so they're all still there waiting and alive. But I'm most committed to the current life, which is like the book I'm finishing now.
Yeah, tell us.
Right now.
So you've written one book in a rural setting, and now you're.
Another one. I'm on this country kick.
Yeah, so tell us about your current project. Yeah.
Lord in heaven. It is called Hate Crime. It's set in rural Missouri in a trailer park. And it's a kind of a rough and tumble gay guy who lives in his trailer and has this hookup with this guy that drives trucks. And he's living under the radar. And it's I try not to get too political, but anyway, it's MAGA country system, but he's grown up there, and they're able to just all figure, it is what it is, and then this slightly out there hooker from a truck stop, Tippy, he disappears, and that begins. It's a murder mystery, and that begins where this Mike is kind of concerned, and his friend Randy, well, where the hell did Tippy go? What's going on? He can't just disappear, and but nobody cares. Which also I was inspired by Percival Everett, and I read these books where, with the Mexico, I think, and there'd be all these women that would disappear, and people would just be like, tough shit. So anyway, that's the current, and it brought me anyway, it rolled into this whole thing and this murder mystery that brings up all this stuff for him. And I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know if there's any Republicans here. But there's a senator in Missouri who I'm not very fond of, and he is in the book with actually not much of a slightly different name, so I'll probably have to change it. But he is in the book. And then, as Amy and Rick know, there's an early scene at the demo derby in Columbia, which I went to because I was starting to build this story. And I went to the demo derby, saw the people come out, and I wore a different outfit than this, and it began to build that for me, because they're intermingling, the two sides, but they're living together. And I did a game, like a carnival game, and Betty Lou or whatever nice as could be, and then she's like, "You won." Gave me a MAGA hat. I'm like, no, thanks, Betty. I'll take that little box. But anyway, that's a long answer to a short question. So anyway, that will be done, and something will happen to it.
I mean, it's such a different type of format for life.
Did it come natural to you? Did you have to study?
No,
it?
that was
How do you
hard.
write?
That one was hard because it was first person. Some books are easy, some books are hard. It was first person and it evolved, and I'd never written a murder mystery. And that, it becomes complicated because you're in the middle and then things have to be logical and make sense. So it's like, well, wait, how did they kidnap this person and get over there? How did
Yeah.
it, so that, that became more challenging.
Did you write it from the ending? Or
You know, I write forward. I
you
just
don't really know where it's going necessarily.
no, and it changed. I thought I knew where it was going, but as I connected more and more with the central character, and also obviously this is impacted by what's going on in our world today. So I thought I knew where we were headed at the end, but I couldn't quite do it, and so it changed up a little bit.
Well, do you want to open it to?
Sure. Oh, look, it's a big crowd. Oh, there's a question. Hello.
Hello. So, thank you for that. You did it. So I love the idea of the stream of consciousness writing and really putting yourself in the story. I think that's fascinating. How do you know while doing that when you're done? Like, how do you get out of it and actually say, okay, it's time to publish this and stop being in this world?
It's a good question, and I teach, and a lot of people want to know that. It's very individual to each writer, but I mean, simple things are you have a writing group, you get a lot of feedback, you do things like that. But the writing of the book, you kind of just know, I mean, that's my experience. You get to a point where you're going, you finish. I always also finish a big messy draft, and then I do multiple revisions. So it's this big messy thing, and I look at it and say, what the hell is this? And I never know if anybody will ever read it or like it or anything. And I'm like, well, and then I keep going through it. And then at some point, either you're just tired of it, and you're like, oh, enough already, or you're like, yep, this is complete. This is complete. We got to where we need to. Like this one was, the drought was so clear because the final scene, my books always break my heart, but the final scene was so like, I cry every time I read it. You probably won't, but, and so I knew it was like, that was the moment. And I sometimes make choices where people are, especially my writing group, they're like, what do you mean? There's no scene about this, and why did it? But then you just kind of know within yourself, like, it's done, I've reached it. That's the end of, bye, part now.
Was this an easy one? You said some are hard and some are easy.
This was in the middle. It wasn't easy breezy, but it wasn't wildly difficult because it was a book where I got to go wherever I wanted. There was no plot in this, in this big guy, and then and then it took me. So it wasn't a big challenging struggle, but it also, there were a lot of stalls and points where I was like, the beautiful lady in the corner.
Okay, this is kind of a question, kind of a comment, based on your question. I just finished reading a book that got really good reviews.
Mm-hmm.
The author was well regarded, and I didn't want to finish it. Not because I didn't want, like you said earlier, I didn't want to let go of the characters. I didn't want to finish it because I really didn't like what she was doing in the last few chapters. She lost me.
Right.
And I actually made myself finish it before I came here because I couldn't sleep. And so I read a lot, and I've always read a lot. But I kind of wonder with authors, why would a good author actually write a horrible, an ending that just made you like, I mean, is this like, This just like happens sometimes.
Honestly, for me as an author, if you buy the book, I'm happy.
Yeah,
That's number one.
right, right.
If you actually read the whole thing, I'm happy. If you have any kind of emotional reaction to it, I'm happy. It's like just to have an emotional reaction, even if it's like, I hate this fucking book, and you throw it in the fire, I'm like, good. It made you feel something. Because that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
And then why you do what you do that's the process. If it felt right to you, I've done things that everybody told me, don't do that. And then ultimately I'm like, no, it feels right. That's what I'm going to do. And then that's where reviews are interesting because you make some choices and one person will be like, horrible. And someone else will be like, brilliant. So, but you, as an author, you own it. It's yours and you get to do it the hell you want to do. And then some will like it, some will not, some will, and also once it's done, it's yours. It's over. It's not mine anymore. It's
Well,
yours.
I will say that it made me curious to maybe read something else she'd written.
That's perfect. You can't ask for anything
I
more.
mean, it was totally it was very modern, futuristic, whatever, involving AI stuff that we haven't even thought about yet.
Right. Well, if I get you moving on to read the next book, then there's in the very back a question.
I want to know about the cover.
Oh.
How does this relate to the story?
Right, which is Brian Alessandro, who's a writer I know, who's a good writer and also is a journalist. And then he's so talented and he's, look him up, Brian Alessandro, his name's on the front. And he does art. And then he did a graphic novel of Edmund White, right? A Boy's Own Story, and they're going to make it into a big fancy motion picture. But he read the book and I liked his illustration and I told him I wanted something a little, what's the word, like artsy, like surreal, almost like that kind of conjures an image. Because we got these two stories and modern and this and that and tobacco and so he came up with that and I loved it. Luckily the publisher did, but because it does relate to scenes within the book. The men's legs, and I guess it's not a big spoiler that there's gonna be some sex in that field. And it's homosexual sex. So that is like them in the field, and then some of the pieces in there. What do you call it? A collage almost. He brought pieces, and I like the colors too. I thought by picking those muted, and then those are big tobacco leaves. So yeah. Any other questions? Oh.
You've mentioned a lot how when you make these characters, you live in them, and even after the book, you kind of carry them with you keep them on a little farm or something.
Mm-hmm.
As time has gone on, and you also spoke about how you kind of just know when a story is concluding. As time has gone on and times have changed over the years, have you ever been tempted to bring a character back into a new time or new situation?
I did, the good old Butcher Sons, that kind of ended, and I felt I took notes on that. There could be a sequel. There could be a whole nother, because, Adelaide has found peace, or, so that those people I think of, could make for a sequel. But that's about it. Everybody else is, they've done enough. They, who knows what they're doing over at the farm, but yeah, not really. And also I'm a writer who I was taught when you finish one book, you start the next. You don't pause. And so I'm always have multiple ideas and, while I had hate crime percolating along as I was, pushing Drought into something. So there's always, then I'm all excited about that. So I'm never too drawn to go backwards. I want to keep going forwards. And I'm grateful that the ideas keep coming. That I have too many ideas and they keep coming and then I have to center and be like, stay with it, you know, because now I have to spend however long revising hate crime, and I've got to stay with it before I hop somewhere else.
So you talked about demolition derby,
Yes.
and when you went, you want to let them know that you were screaming right along with all the other hillbillies there? Standing up,
Yes.
yelling, I didn't want to leave.
No, I didn't want to leave. No, I enjoy. Well, that's the country boy, country girl, country in me is. I still like. I'm always drawn to all that. If you haven't been to the, has anybody been to the demo derby?
Demolition.
Don't. Oh, did you love it? There's something electric about. I love being outside at night in the summer when it's hot and the stars. There was just something so like vivid about that whole experience. I also things that are not like me, like I don't think you see me in a demo derby. Like, so it's exciting, and the people were not as like I don't know. It was good to mix and mingle and just be present with all the people that were so excited. And the ladies appear in the book. The Dick was like, that's my brother, and he's kind of rough and tumble, and I'm not. But he was like, because these ladies behind us, not to be too graphic, but what didn't they say, motherfucker? Everything. They were drinking beer and they were like smoking, and Dick was like, oh my goodness, that's too much. And I was like, so they were over the top, but they appear in the book. Don't tell them, but they appear in the book.
There was a question.
One more question, and then.
So you like horror so much as a kid?
Yes.
Yes. Have you ever thought about writing in that genre?
No, I wrote one ghost story, but which is on my website. But no, I'm just drawn to what I'm drawn to, and they always seem to be character stories, and it's just not the genre. I like reading it. As a kid, I read Richard Matheson, Hell House, and I recently read Paul Tremblay's horror movie, which terrified me. And I still go to these cheesy horror movies and stuff, and it's not I can't write it. It's not me. So I guess that's it. Wrap it up. Buy the book. The book's here.
And so we'll be doing a signing up here. We'll be up here, and we have books for sale. We do have some backlists as well as the new book. So just check out the front desk. Thank you all once again for coming. Another hand for our speakers.
We'll have to ask them.
Everybody here.